Hey Luke, I want to talk to you about some of the things in your video. You talk about arguing over words, and thing is there shouldn't be an argument over words. Words are primarily concepts, and concepts are units, two or more units, um, integrated under similar attributes and characteristics and united under a single definition, and all of their measurements are omitted. So even the most abstract of concepts derive from perceptual concretes. For instance, we can perceive what a foot is, but we cannot perceive what a mile is. So when we connect the relationship between a foot and a mile, we can understand the concept of a mile. Just like when we connect the relationship between a mile and a light year, we can understand the concept of a light year. So, concepts enable us to have an unlimited supply of knowledge, basically, by enabling us to grasp the most abstract of concepts. Even God. We take what knowledge is, a retainable concept. When we take it a step further, we establish the relationship from 1 to 50, then the relationship from 50 to a billion, and then the relationship from a billion to infinity, and then we connect that chain of concepts, infinity, with knowledge, retainable concepts, and we all of a sudden have the idea or the concept of all-knowing. And then we take it a step further and match it with an entity. Of course, God is just a gigantic chain of concepts, much like I think objective morality is a chain of concepts. A lot of people have been trying to explain what objective morality is, and yet they don't take an objective approach to it, especially when they use the word objective. Objectivism is the philosophy built by Ayn Rand, and I just see the word being tossed around a lot, and I don't think many people are actually using it correctly. Objective morality simply means that morality exists. There isn't really any other elaborate way of explaining it. So I'm going to go ahead and try to, I guess, give the meaning to objective morality, although it isn't something I would confidently suggest that this is the meaning of objective morality, but maybe you could use the definition that I give and somehow integrate it into your philosophy of how we should live as a society. Although honestly I don't agree with anarchy, but you're pretty calm in all of your arguments, and I like that. That is appealing to me. And so I'm gonna go ahead and go over a few, I guess, meanings behind some of the words I will use to describe objective morality. The first one I'm going to talk about is happiness. And what is happiness? Happiness is a response to values. And of course it is the chemical response in our brains, chemical reactions in our brains, but for the most part it's a response to values. For instance, if you value big gigantic TVs, going out and buying a TV will be a response to those values and ultimately making you happy, much like if you value having sex with lots of women. If you go out and have sex with lots of women, the response will be happiness. Of course, there's fallacy in valuing those kinds of things, because sometimes the losses you will incur won't exactly be worth the happiness you gain, so it's best to adjust your values according to their functionality, which is the next word I will talk about. Functionality is a rather difficult concept to grasp, but it is a concept we can perceive. So when we think about functionality, we think about two or more, I don't want to say components, but two or more concepts coming together and making a reality. For instance, I can take two objects or two entities and combine them with another two objects or two entities to create the reality of four. This is also known as addition, which is the combination of any entity or any quantity. This suggests that a quantity must exist, but can exist in any form. So I would say that functionality is merely the combination of any number of concepts or entities or units and creating a reality from that. And of course a reality is something that we perceive and something that we know exists. And the last thing I will touch upon is a right, which is also another term I don't fully understand, and it's not something that is easily explained. I made a recent video about this, but asking Amendum to maybe elaborate on the definition, because I know he uses it a lot, as well as everyone uses the word right a lot. We have them, but I don't think anyone could actually explain what it is. I'm sure people can, it's not prevalent information. So far what I've obtained, or what I've concluded, is that a right is an essential an essential aspect of the survival, or I'm sorry, an essential aspect that ensures the survival of volitions beings. And without these essential aspects, we would not be able to survive. Of course, that doesn't explain what a right is, and that's something I have not yet concluded. So now on to the actual meaning of morality. And keep in mind that abstract concepts like God or morality or universe, these are concepts that are built from chains of concepts. So of course the definitions are going to be much more elaborate than I would give you, because everything has to come back to a perceptual concrete. Much like if I say the universe, the space in which everything exists, I would slowly break down that concept into perceivable units, because that's how we measure things. That's how we determine what reality is. So it's important to keep in mind that the more abstract you get with your philosophies, the more positive you have to be of your knowledge of perceptions, concrete perceptions. If you don't know the definitions to certain concepts that are more concrete and more close to reality, then your definitions of your abstract concepts are going to be horrid, and you're going to come across, I kind of know what I'm talking about, as opposed to I know what I'm talking about. So morality, I would say, of course, this is left up to scrutiny, because I'm not a linguist. I'm not a linguistic genius, but I mean, this is what I'm coming to conclude. It's not my absolute conclusion. So of course, any new information or anybody's input is really, it gets accepted and encouraged. But morality is a code that is formed from a chain of concepts that volitions beings choose to follow in order to gain happiness. And that happiness has to do with, the functionality within morality, or that function would be created off a chain of concepts surrounding the rights of volitions beings. So I don't know if that helps explain objective morality. I mean, objective morality is a bullshit term. It just that means a morality exists. The thing we want to focus on is what morality is, what a moral is. And a moral is what I would assume to be the chain of concepts that create a code that volitions beings choose to follow in order to gain happiness. So if I wasn't to follow this moral code, whatever it be, whatever chain of concepts it is, whether it be the no harm, I forget the term you use, but where you don't harm other human beings, you do anything within your own happiness, or you can do anything to gain happiness so long as it doesn't infringe on the rights of another person. So whatever the moral chain of concepts that create what a moral is, that is what volitions beings would choose to follow in order to gain happiness. And if they don't follow that moral code, and they obtain happiness through something else, through immorality, then the functionality of that morality would have dire consequences, such as jail and other things. So the happiness gained from being immoral would inevitably be, I guess, destroyed by the consequences gained through obtaining that happiness through immorality. Also, another thing you mentioned was that our perceptions are flawed, and if you're going to make that statement, then you're implying that you can prove that there are perceptions that aren't flawed. So in order to even create the sentence, our perceptions are flawed, you have to have evidence that there are other perceptions available to other beings that are finer than ours. Much like I can make the statement that some humans are born with flawed perceptions. I know this because some